Hello there, and welcome back to Four Times That Podcast. You join us again on the 28th of May. We've just discussed the Cup final, but we're back to discuss the 24-25 season as a whole. Brendan Rodgers' second season back as Celtic manager, and we finished it with a League Cup and League double. We also made the knockout stage of the Champions League, where we put up a spirited performance against Bayern Munich, but were eliminated with pretty much the last kick of the ball that night. So it's myself, Darren. I'm delighted to be joined by Danny, Andy and Tony. So we're just going to discuss the season as a whole, try and look back on it and pick out a few highlights. We'll maybe come to a consensus for who player of the season was. I don't think that'll be too difficult this season. Danny, I'll come to you first. It's been, some would say, a long season, but there's so many highs and lows that it's worth going over the season as a whole. So what I'll do, we took predictions off each other at the start of the season. We'll just sort of spend 5-10 minutes with each year going through them and seeing how our predictions played out. So first of all, how did you think the season went, and was it what you expected from Brendan Rodgers in his second season back? We obviously made a lot of signings last year, broke a transfer budget for like Army Engels, brought Austin Trusty in, Paolo Bernardo and Adam Ida also joined in permanent deals. So from what you were feeling about last August, how's the season played out for you?
I think you would need to split it into two sections. I would say from August to March, I think 95% of that period Celtic were incredible. Thought we played some great football. Players like Kuhn, Maeda, they two in particular were flying. Scoring, setting up goals. McGregor had a fantastic season, despite what happened to him on Saturday. Just that first section, Celtic were incredible. Thought we, I never ever think about pre-season as important. But when you're dusting Man City, and, well, we know why they beat Man City, but they gave Chelsea a doing. Alright, it's pre-season, but you've seen how hungry the players were, and then they just come back straight away. 4-1 against Kilmarnock when the flag went up, and we looked really, really hungry. Honestly, it was like night and day for the season before, because I thought the season before we won the league and won the cup on the last day, but we were quite average for most of that season, and we figured it out in the end. And, Champions League was a real plus this year. I would say it was, I didn't hold out much hope for us in that new format. I thought we'd be one of the teams in the bottom 8, but we got a kind draw. But do you know what? We've had kind draws in the past in competitions and made an asset, so we full credit to the team for what they did in Europe. I thought, barring the Dortmund game, which was a complete and utter doing, but at the time you thought it was just another one of the long list of nights that we've been going through in recent years. The Dortmund game turned out to be the anomaly, because the other 7 games in the group stages we were really good, or the league phase if they're calling it that. I thought the game against Bratislava, how many times have you seen Celtic, especially in the Champions League, they welcome these teams and you think it's got to be, you can name your score, and then they end up sitting in, stealing a goal, and then you end up chasing the game. But no, we set about them for the off. 5 goals in a Champions League game, fucking outstanding. As I say, Dortmund, but then Atalanta. I mean, that's the performance we've been waiting on for a Celtic team away from home in Europe in years. Showed a real maturity. Everybody stood up. The defence that night, Trusty, I think it was Trusty and Scales at the back, but were brilliant. And some of the football we were playing, I mean, the Saturday night game at St Johnstone in the league, I know I'm going back from competition to competition here, but just thinking about how good that was, and I just thought of Ike's value there, because he had that assist for Ida. But just the football was amazing at that time, and the players, and they were all playing with a freedom and a confidence, and we were scoring plenty of goals, and, players that couldn't maybe struggled when he first came, but he'd kicked on now, and Maeda looked like he'd put everything together. We all knew about his pace and his work rate, but he was adding composure to his game, and you'd see Maeda get through and goal, and you think, for fuck's sake, going to end up, but he was putting them in the net, and he couldn't really fault them through that first couple of months of the season. Dortmund aside, I mean, they weren't great in every game, certainly not, but just thinking about when they Aberdeen in the League Cup semi-final, when you're thinking, we've just threw away a 2-goal lead against Aberdeen a couple of weeks before, and they've came in foreshadowing here, because obviously they've just beat us in the Scottish Cup final, but when they came there, the Aberdeen really fancied themselves that night, and we took 6 off them. Game was done at half time, and we just looked unstoppable. And then you get to in Europe, what was it, the Club Bruges, which was a weird game, because they were quite good, and yet the team kept going, they worked it out, they got the draw. At that point actually got us through in the end. And then Zagreb away, where we thought we were going to, we ended, was it not an each? And it was pure pish. And it was like, you were kind of stuck between, well, actually, you took a nut each away from home in Europe because we don't get them very often. But then you're thinking, maybe we should have only won that. And then you get the Young Boys game after Christmas and the Villa game where you're 2-0 down after 3 minutes. You think, fuck, it's going to be 7 or 8. Fight back to 2 each. We're actually unlucky to get beat that night. Played some really good stuff. But then obviously the Cup final against Rangers. But Celtic weren't great that day, but it's a Cup final against two rivals, 50-50 split in the stadium, big atmosphere, right before Christmas Eve. As we've just discussed about finals, you've no divine right to win them, you need to go and win them. And by hook or by crook, we ended up winning the League Cup. And then you think, right, we've got the league. The only disappointing one was obviously the 3-0 at Ibrox in New Year. At the first section of the season, they were really poor that day. Really, really bad. And I just kind of chalked up to a bad day at the office at the time, thinking because they'd been so good in the lead up. But every time we get beat off Rangers, we kept extending our lead. I think the Bayern Munich games, I thought at home, Bayern gave us a bit of a chasing that first half. Yeah, we were only about 4 or 5 seconds away from getting in at nothing each. And then you go 2-0 down and you think, oh, this kind of ties all. Then you pull one back and then we had that kind of, we're going to get a penalty, we're not going to get a penalty. And we had a right good go at them, and then the away game, we were fucking marvellous. Like, people say they're proud of their football team very often, but watching us in Munich that night, the chances that we created, the way we took the game to them, I mean, they've just went and won the German League at a canter. And they take the game to them at night and fucking go out to a fucking slide tackle or a block. Somebody getting closed down late in the game was just fucking heartbreaking. And we deserved more out that. We deserved more out that tie. And we deserved more out Europe. But since then, since the Bayern game finished, it was definitely a kind of drop. I don't think you wouldn't be able to say or argue otherwise. Still playing some nice stuff from time to time, but there was definitely a drop in the performance, and losing at home to Rangers was a real fucking low point because it was Barry Ferguson, it was our manager. They weren't very good. I mean, they came out and harassed us for 20 minutes and scored a goal and then they got another one, but we were that bad. We fucking got ourselves back to 2 each and then threw it away. It was just fucking shite. It was really poor. The better players in the team didn't turn up, but the league was won. I mean, again, I think that was to go, but we were 14 or 15 clear of Rangers at the time, maybe even 16. But like, the next time we played them, we were even further in front. The league was won at a canter, turned up in the Scottish Cup, but Hibs hadn't been beat in a while. They came to Celtic Park full of confidence. That was a great atmosphere. They brought, 7,000 that day? It was a great atmosphere. Celtic were really good, 1-2-0. And then in this Cup semi, we were brilliant as well. Blew St Johnstone away, who just beat us a couple of weeks before. And then the Cup final on Saturday was obviously a game too far. But I think to look at the season overall, I would say it was a very good season. I mean, we won a double. These things are never guaranteed at the start of the season. We've done a podcast through a season where we won fuck all, and it's no great. So I'd say for August to March, I thought was probably 9 out of 10. And then you're maybe looking at 5 out of 10 for the rest of the season. But by that point, the League Cup was in the bag. The league was done. And you really only had to win 3 games to win a treble. And we won 2 of them and lost the other one in penalties. So, it's not going to... I'm not going to rush and buy the DVD of the season if they bring one out. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable, fantastic double-winning season.
I'll quickly run you through your predictions. You can let me know what one you're proudest of and what one you'd wish to forget. So your player of the season prediction was Cameron Carter-Vickers. Surprise player of the season was Yang. The league he got right, he says would win it by over 10 points. Scottish Cup predicted to beat St Mirren in the final. League Cup predicted to beat Motherwell in the final. Europe, as you sort of mentioned, you predicted it would go out in disgrace, was your words. Something mad to happen, as I think you says every fucking year of this podcast, Celtic to score 10 in the game, but he says if anybody else had went for that, you'd go for Kasper to score, and for something mental to happen there.
What a prediction that is. Fucking Scott to cost us a check.
And for something mad to happen on the other side of the city, he predicted they wouldn't play a game at Ibrox this season. So what ones you highlighting, lowlight?
Well, obviously, I think the only one I got right was winning the league. But I did say we'd won the League Cup as well. I didn't predict they would get to any finals. Carter Vickers, I don't think Carter Vickers had a bad season, but it's nobody's best season at Celtic, so I'll take that one. Yang, again, thought he looked quite good most of the season. The other week at Aberdeen, he looked like a world beater, but that kind of bad cameo at the weekend. Rangers obviously went back to Ibrox in September, lost the Scottish Cup. Europe, I did say disgrace, mind. I did say that. I must have been in a bad mood about something. It must have been the fact that we hadn't signed anybody going into the start of the season. I didn't think we would do well.
You just put £100 on Man City in that friend.
Aye, that's right, yeah. That's right. What a fucking wake-up call that was the next day. But yeah, Europe, I didn't think the way the team had played, like players like obviously losing O'Reilly and knowing that's something that really bugs me about Celtic. It has players like Van Dijk, Foster, like all the good players really that we've had over here. Like, you know they're leaving and it gets to the end of August, you know they're going. I'd rather just fucking went to the end of the season before. So we knew we were losing O'Reilly and we hadn't replaced him. But we did a lot better in the Champions League than I predicted. So I'll need to put my thinking cap on over the summer and come back with better ones next year.
Aye, definitely some food for thought there. But Andy, I'll come to you. How are you feeling about the season as a whole? I know it's still very raw. We're what, 3-4 days out from the Scottish Cup final, which obviously is still fresh in everybody's memory. I'll run through your predictions. You can sort of pick out yours as well, and then give me your sort of summary of the season. Player of the season, you went for Rio Hatate, unsurprisingly. Prize player of the season, you went for Paulo Bernardo. You also put in brackets that he'd be sold in summer 25 for profit. League, you predicted we would win, and you says that if pals out at fall would concede the league by November and it would end up winning. It'd be 20 points. I think it was 17 points in the end, so not too far away. As most days did, you predicted the league and Scottish Cup as well to come home. Obviously one of them did. Europe, you did predict that we'd finish in a 24 and get through. That obviously did happen. Something mad to happen in Celtic season. He says that box office Brendan, after an away win in Europe, is speaking to some foreign journals in their native tongue, which I know we didn't get an away win in the Champions League, but I think after one of the American friendlies he was speaking to Palma's journal pals in Spanish, so not too far away from it. And then something mad across the city, he says that Philip Clement would be away before Christmas and that their fans would be on the park screaming about traditions, but it would be Hampden they'd be on because they wouldn't be back at Ibrox before Clement was away. So how do you sum up Celtic's performance and your own with your predictions?
It's a better performance than Danny's, I've got to say. I'm still not aware that Kasper Schmeichel to score. You really couldn't write that. As I said earlier, I think if you've got to think about the season as a whole, and Danny's made a lot of good points there. And I think while it is disappointing to obviously lose it in a treble, lose Scottish Cup final, and lose it in that manner, penalties always is a bit sorer. Sometimes you would happen in 90 minutes and get our way, but I think it's a whole. If you say to people at the start of the season, a league and cup double and make a good account of yourself in the Champions League, you're going to take it. Could have been better in places, but ultimately I think it's a decent season. I think the big marker for a lot of people, really, if you sort of wind the clock back, is Europe. It was progression in Europe. It was day better than we've done, and we did that. Obviously, you can't just win a couple of games in Europe and then lose everything else, and all's well and done. But we won. There was portions of the season, periods of the season, we were really, really good. We were playing some really good stuff, and then there was portions where standards has maybe dipped off. I think has been highlighted already. It seems that since Alphonso Davies scored that goal, form's maybe took a bit of a dip. Is that being a bit harsh? Potentially, but I think it's not really the tale of two sides of the season, because I think that would be very simplistic to say. But I think that there's been a lot of good happened, and there's been a lot of positive performances. There's been a lot of positive moments. There's been some fucking brilliant moments, like winning the League Cup again. Just obviously the season prior we had lost that, and we've spoke here a freaking million and one times about the importance of that sort of first trophy, laying down the marker, and obviously being a sort of set up for the remainder of the season and all the rest of it, and sort of claiming that back is always special in the manner that we've done it. And then we just really just kept motoring on, and no, you can't be 10 out of 10 every week. There's no football team in the world that plays 30 and 36 however many league games a season and is brilliant every single one of them. No, but there was a long period or a big number of games rather that we were, and we were really good. So I think that needs to be highlighted. It needs to be looked at and appreciated. There's been some brilliant days out. There's been some brilliant games. No, it's not going to live as one of the seasons that were one of the best we've had, because probably comes down to that that cup final and being sore, and I think a lot of people's opinions would be different had we won that, but I don't think you can lose sight of ultimately what we've accomplished this season, and realistically, is it a greater success than the season before? And I think you're probably not going to convince anybody, or you're not going to convince me rather, that it has been a bigger success, because ultimately we've won, obviously, the league and cup double, and as I mentioned earlier, it was European progression. It was going to that and sort of obviously put a good account of ourselves. And after Dortmund, as Danny mentioned, we were all shiting ourselves thinking this is going to get worse, and it didn't. It turned out that was a one-off. The team learned from it. It's something that we've been crying out for years, and we kicked on for there. And I couldn't have been prouder of the team. I couldn't have been happier. Even just that performance in Munich sticks out, obviously, like a sore thumb to me, just how good it was. And comparing the feeling for then to now, and I think that's the thing. It's a bit of recency when people talk about how it's been a poor season, a terrible season, and I think it's people just fucking spitting the dummy out a bit and losing all sense of rationale and everything else when Celtic lose a game of football. And that happens. And I think Tony mentioned that he's right to stay away from Twitter and stuff like that. It's just people who shout the loudest and all the rest of it, but I don't really think that's representative of the vast majority of people. There's certain questions about certain players, and there's all these wee things that we'll come on to when we obviously look ahead. But looking back, I think it's going to be one of them that it's been a good season. We've had domestic success, which is great. Could it have been better? Of course, but ultimately we done what was the biggest thing for me. Like, I wanted us to do better in Europe, and we've done that, and I think that's huge. So I think, darn, it's a successful season, and I just won't accept any argument otherwise. There's been, as I say, some fucking brilliant days, some brilliant games, some great days out going to them. Obviously, you get a couple of Sorians in there, but that's football. But aye, overall successful season for me. And as for the predictions, I don't think I've done half bad. So I look forward to seeing what shite I come up with next year.
I definitely agree with you about it being a success. Tony, I'll come to you. Your predictions were as follows. Player of the season, well done. The only one of us who went for Daisen Maeda, who I feel may get the overall nod from us. Surprise player of the season, you went for Nicholas Kuhn, another good shout. Obviously, I guess went sort of full circle. He was shite this time last year and then was heralded as a saviour and revelation the first half of the season. Now he's shite again according to some. League prediction, he says we would win, but he says we'd hit the 100-point mark. We didn't quite make that. Scottish Cup and League Cup said we'd win. Like, he has done that as well. Europe, we said 1 win, 2 draws and 5 defeats, so he didn't quite say it out in disgrace, but it's no far away from it with a 5-point prediction. I think we ended up on 12. Something mad to happen, you did go for the same as Danny. You went for put 10 past someone, and something mad to happen. He says across the city, he says that they would invade the pitch in protest, so unfortunately we didn't get quite there. But thoughts on your predictions and Celtic in general?
I think I've done quite well. Obviously the 2 player shouts I think are pretty decent. The Champions League shout, I think that's when we were dragging our heels over Engels, Ida, and there was another fella playing out in America. We were just doing the usual, just hopeless in the transfer market, and that's where the negative prediction came from. I was glad to get the Champions League part wrong, because I thought we had a really good showing in the Champions League out with Dortmund. No far away from obviously such a huge win in Munich, but obviously didn't quite pan out that way. The League Cup we did win, the league we won very comfortably. We probably should have hit 100 points to be honest, but I'll touch on that obviously. I think Danny's right. I think for this season you need to kind of split it, because for pre-season up until the first game at Ibrox, we were electric. Then after we lost at Ibrox, it kind of tailed off a bit. There was a lot of kind of poor results. The likes of losing away to Hibs, obviously we should have got the draw that day, but we weren't great for what I remember. I think I only seen bits and bobs of it because I was on holiday, but it didn't look great. Losing at Celtic Park, Barry Ferguson, I mean, that's a black mark against the season, I'm afraid. Losing 3-0 to Clermont as well, I mean, 2 dreadful managers. So the last game of the season against St Mirren was really poor. I'll get all the bad stuff out of the way, then I'll go back to the good stuff. Obviously, the cup final was a disaster. But if I get back to the the kind of first months of the season was just electric. It was a superb watch. When we battered Leipzig, I was over the moon. I'm not going to touch on Atalanta, but obviously I was really proud of that result. The first derby, I thought we beat Rangers comfortably. We went to places like Tynecastle, won 4-1. We got a right good win up at Pittodrie 1-0. Battered Aberdeen in the semi-final, won the League Cup final, even get back again. The Bratislava game, we absolutely wiped the floor with them in the first game of the Champions League. I think we might have been second out of the 32, which was quite funny to see. So the start of the season was excellent. I don't know if the start was that good that ended up hindering us. I know that might sound a bit stupid, but there was no jeopardy in any derby game apart from the first one in the League Cup final. The jeopardy was gone when we went to Ibrox, and I think we just thought we would turn up and win and maybe get a punch in the face there. Didn't learn from it in terms of defending, get into the next one. So I think the players done that well early in the season, and then it did feel after Bayern Munich put us out that we lost something, and I don't know what it was. Obviously, Kyogo going in January. He was a great servant overall for Celtic. It was sad to see him go. It was great to have Jota back. Obviously, really disappointing how his season's finished, and obviously half of next season's finished for him as well. But I think as a season overall, it's been a good season. I have to admit that. We've won a cup double, which is great. We've progressed in the Champions League, which is excellent. We've had some really cracking days, beating Rangers 3-0, winning the League Cup final against them, beating RB Leipzig, beating Bratislava, beating Young Boys late on. We've played some great football at times. That one up at St Johnstone, I thought we were excellent. And, I think me and Danny were quite unlucky not to get our 10-0. There was a couple of games, I'm sure we were 4-0, 5-0 up at half-time. I think Kelly in the split, or maybe just before the split, was one of them. That's the Johnson game I mentioned. Even the Scottish Cup semi against them, you thought we could maybe have blown them away as well. So a good season, I think. If we'd have won the treble, it would obviously have been a very, very special season, but unfortunately that didn't transpire. But I think I'll look back the season fondly and be happy with it. We obviously won our 55th title. We won 4 in a row. Like Sir Nicholas Kuhn, as much as it's tailed off, excellent season overall. Maida had a really good season. Adamida, somebody gets a lot of stick, still scored 20 goals, which you can't dismiss. Arna Engels started well. I think he's tailed off. If he stays for next season, which I'm assuming he will, is going to be a big one for him. He needs to really step it up a gear, in my opinion. Same for quite a few of them. So, good season. Obviously, looking forward to next season. We're seeded for the Champions League draw. We're going to have a chance to get back in. Obviously, the financial implications of that and how positive it is for the club as a whole. Kieran Tierney coming back is huge. Proper, really, really good player. But overall happy. I've enjoyed the games I've been to. Obviously a couple of disappointing results, but I always enjoy coming back here to Glasgow and getting pissed with my mates. I mean, even after losing a cup final, there was a guy in the pub singing fucking Engelbert Humperdinck for some reason. So, I guess overall it's always a pleasure to follow Celtic, and you take the good with the bad, and for a long, long time it's been mostly good. So a good season. It's 4 trophies out of 6 for Brendan on his return. He's going to be here next season. Hopefully he can make it 7 out of 9. But for me, next season, 2 main priorities would be going again in the Champions League, and of course winning the title would be huge as well. So, good season.
Aye, definitely, right. That just leaves me. I'll go with my predictions, but I'm going to do them in reverse order because my worst one is my player of the season shout, so I'll leave that till the end. So, something mad across the city. I says that they would finish the season with Steven Gerrard as a manager, and you know what? It got quite close. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think he's still second favourite with the bookies now, but the season is over, so I'll admit defeat on that, but it wasn't the worst shout. Something mad to happen at Celtic. I says that Rodgers would knock back an elite club during the season. That's not quite happened. Big Einstein in Europe maybe kept that from happening. There was obviously talk, especially that first half of the season when Rodgers was flying and Ange wasn't doing so well. Europe, I predicted we would finish 25th in the league phase and miss out in the playoff by a place after 2 wins, 2 draws and 4 defeats. I think we finished 21st, so it was obviously pretty close, and I think we were a point away from missing out, so not a mile away from that. Scottish and League Cup as well, I predicted wins against Hearts and Motherwell. League, I said would win the league on 103 points. poor second half of the season probably stopped us hitting the 100-point mark. Surprise player of the season, I went for Matthew Anderson, who is a young left back who went out to America with the team, but he was then loaned out to an Austrian second division team. And you know what's funny, actually, I was actually reading an article today from somebody who was interviewed. It was a guy that used to be a youth coach at Celtic in terms of who had worked with Anderson, and he couldn't rave enough about him. He says that he's got a massive future, so you never know, in 12 months time I might look like a genius with that one. And then Danny, we thought we couldn't get worse than your Kasper Schmeichel score shout, but my prediction for player of the season 24-25 was our Honduran saviour, Luis Palma, who fucking might be my worst shout ever. I don't know why I done it, but I thought Brenda would have him firing, but instead he had him fired on a plane to Greece, and who knows, knowing Celtic will be back for a playoff in the 25-26 season to try and get us in the Champions League. But aye, a fucking terrible shout. But aye, on the season as a whole, I'm happy with it. Like, I know it ended poorly, but I think if you sort of contrast the first season Rodgers was back in the second season, the first season's looked back fondly on because we sort of turned it around in the second half of the season and we won the cup final on the last day. Whereas there's not too much difference, I don't think, if you look at how well we started and then sort of tailed off. Like, still won a double. Europe was massively better than I thought. Like, even that Bratislava game was brilliant. I loved it. See, the fact that I was nervous going into that, but the fact we actually set about a team like that was brilliant. Don't get me wrong, after the Dortmund game, I was on here saying I wish we could just forfeit the remaining 6 games. But then there was so much sort of stability about the team in the defence. Like, that Atalanta game, like the back four, I think it was Scales and Trusty at the back, but I think it was maybe Johnston and Alex Valle that played that night as well, and we were just so good. And you know what, it wasn't even a pure, like, the first half Atalanta had a lot of the ball, but the longer the game went on, we looked sort of comfortable, and it wasn't one that you're saying, oh, I can't believe we got out there with a draw. We actually seen it out pretty well, and it was real maturity. We then obviously had the Leipzig game, which I think is probably our best European performance in 20 years. I know we've beat Barca and the likes, but I think in terms of actually just setting about a team like that, like a real Bundesliga team, I think they were second in the Bundesliga. And I know a lot of people get caught up saying that 3 of the 4 teams that finished in the bottom 4 you scored, but it's not like we got an easy draw to start with. Every team that played in the Champions League got 2 teams for pot 1, 2 for pot 2, 3 and 4 as well. Like, it's we got the same level of difficulty as every other team. It might work out that a lot of teams we played had poor campaigns, but that's no Celtic's fault, and Club Brugge were a handy outfit. They've obviously had, I think they beat Aston Villa and the likes as well, but we came back from a horrendous own goal that night and got the draw. I was really disappointed with the Zagreb game. I thought they were a poor team, and I think, like the next season, that's what I'll be looking for us to improve on in terms of going and winning that sort of away game. As I mentioned, I think it was 2 draws and 2 defeats we had in the 4 away games in the league phase, so we got there in the end. And even the Villa Park game, we were good, and the Young Boys one, that's one that I'd give Schmeichel a lot of praise for. I thought he was brilliant that night. And one you just mentioned, Adam Ida, he obviously has shot that comes off and hits the Young Boys defender and goes in, which puts us through. But I thought even, I think he just scored against Bratislava as well, and he got 2 at Villa Park, and he scored in big derbies as well. I think he just had a decent season. He's another one that needs to kick on next year. But I look back on the season as a whole. Like, trebles, we've won so many recently that they sort of become almost expected, because as I said earlier, like, you expect Celtic to win any game that they play in Scotland, so we're always going to be expecting, especially when the treble was sort of there at Hampden for us and we were in the lead. But you know, as I said, I think the fact that the season finished poorly was souring it for a lot of people, but I think when you look back as a whole, there was a lot of high points. But we're going to wrap up here for this part of the review. We will be back with the awards that we're giving out for goal of the season, player of the season, etc. And then we'll have a wee quiz as well, just to pick our brains and see who can come out on top in that. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this part of the review, and the next part should be out shortly for you, so we hope you join us for that as well. Cheers. Hail, hail.